Hey guys, it's SpiderMan 2001 back again for another video for you guys. Basically, I thought I'd do a video today showing something that I've been meaning to do probably for a little bit. My top 10 favorite movies of all time. Also, sorry if I don't sound like myself because I have a bit of a cold, so yeah, sorry about that. But anyways, let's get right to it. Number 10, The Terminator. So basically, The Terminator is definitely a fantastic movie. It's it was released, of course, in 1984. It's directed by James Cameron. Of course, it's rated R, and it's it's rated R in USA, 18A in Canada, and it is from, I think, Orion Pictures and Hemdale Film Corporation. Basically, this film, it stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Michael Biehn. Yeah. This film, basically, if you don't know, it follows the story of course, in 1929, there was this, of course, 1997, there was this nuclear war that happened. In 2029, John Connor is a hero and he saves the day, but of course the Skynet, the company that, like, the device that's made all this happen, doesn't want him to save the day and defeat all the Terminators, so they send a Terminator, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, back in time to kill his mom the year before he's born. So basically, so of course, yeah, he finds 3 Sarah Connors in the phone book in L.A. and he kills 2 of them, of course. But then the real Sarah Connor, who's just a waitress at a restaurant, gets rescued by Sarah Connor's played by Linda Hamilton. She gets rescued by Kyle Reese, who's played by Michael Biehn, and basically, as he's trying to protect her from the Terminator, they develop a relationship. And, of course, that's their objective, is to try to get away from the Terminator and defeat him. So, yeah, definitely a fantastic film. The effects are kind of dated for the time, but, it was 1984. It's the best they had. But, yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, the storyline is just brilliant. And the acting is fantastic. It's also very scary at times, too. Like, it actually feels just like a straight horror film at times. Just the way that the Terminator just sneaks up is so menacing, and just the fact that he's not human as well is kind of scary. Basically, but it's a really good kind of horror. I'm not really usually into horror, but it feels like it's a good kind of horror film for me. And basically, yeah, and lots of great set pieces like the police station, that disco club, yeah, and of course the mall. Yeah, I think it's the mall. Yeah, the mall shootout, I think, or whatever. Yeah, lots of great stuff in this film, and this is some of these movies you'll know that I was lucky to actually see them on the big screen. Not all of them, but quite a few of them. So this one, yeah, I saw on the big screen actually when it came in my city to when it came, of course, when it came to Cineplex in earlier this year, I think January this year, and it was a great experience for me, so had a lot of fun. So if you have not seen The Terminator, definitely check it out. Number 9, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This film is fantastic. It's, of course, from 1971. It is directed by Mel Stewart. It's rated G in USA, G in Canada. It's from, I think, Paramount Pictures and Wolper Pictures, and it stars Gene Wilder, Jack Albertson, Peter Ostrom, Denise Nickerson, Julie Dawn Cole, Roy Kinnear, a lot of actors, I forget their names. Yeah, Dodo Denny is one of them. Yeah, it's a great film, basically. And it really shows what it really actually was showing, because I remember the book was actually, I read the book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I've seen, of course, the 2005 film, and they more closely resemble each other. This one is so different, though, even despite Roald Dahl actually co-writing the screenplay, but he wasn't happy with it, so... But yeah, basically, the fans of this film loved it. And it was basically just a fantastic movie that fans loved, and lots of generations of fans loved it. 2005 film I really enjoyed more as a kid, but this nowadays, as I'm getting older, I realize this one is the definitive version, because we'll both have something that the others don't, but it's just a good interpretation, because it's a musical, but it's more quirky, but sort of feels more like it feels more 70s quirky and more like a black comedy, rather than the other one, which just feels like trying to be too much. The other one was trying to be a little too Harry Potter. Of course, I love Harry Potter, but they was trying to be too Harry Potter. This one was not, because, of course, at this point, Harry Potter didn't exist yet, so this one was not trying to be too Harry Potter at all, and it just was its own thing, and they succeeded. Also, I forgot to mention, if you don't know the plot of this film, which probably most of you do, of course, the Mr. Willy Wonka, who's right there, Gene Wilder, R.I.P. by the way, he basically opens up his factory, or he decides to open up his factory after it being deserted for a while, of course, but then, of course, there's this kid named Charlie Bucket who really wants to win that ticket. He's a poor, he's poor, and his family's poor and everything, but he really wants to win the ticket, and, yeah, there's Charlie right there, and he really wants to win the ticket, and lots of adults are going crazy and everything. Tickets are eventually found by Augustus Gloop, who basically has a problem with Augustus Gloop, who basically has a problem with, like, he binge eats all the time, like he's gluttonous. And then Veruca Salt, who basically is bratty and greedy, like she basically says, even though her father spoils her, she says, "You're a rat mean father, you never give me anything I want." So yeah, she's a spoiled brat, but yeah, she of course gets a ticket because her dad finds one for her, because he works in a nut factory, so he gets his workers to just shell chocolate bar wrappers, and yeah, she doesn't deserve it. And then Violet Beauregard right there, that's a great scene later in the movie where she blows up and she turns into a blueberry. But basically she has a problem with chewing gum, and yeah, she has a problem with chewing gum too much, and is just really kind of rude about it. And then Mike TV, who has a television addiction now, of course, because of that, if this movie was made today, of course, if Roald Dahl was alive today, we'd all be punished, because we all watch TV. We're all on our phones. Like, you're probably watching this video right now is like a punishment from Roald Dahl's perspective, or Willy Wonka's perspective, is at least. Yeah, like what you're doing right now is kind of punishment. But yeah. And yeah, so of course, but then of course after a fake out, of course, they thought Charlie finds money in the street, buys a Wonka bar, and sure enough, a ticket's in it, because the other one was a fake that they mentioned on the news. So basically, but when they get to the factory, they discover Willy Wonka is a very strange man and has very strange methods of working with the Oompa Loompas as his workers, and he basically just has a chocolate. But of course, some of the kids have very weird demises, but the most famous one, of course, is Violet, who blows up and looks like a blueberry. So yeah, like basically, yeah, she eats this piece of chewing gum that is flavored, like I think it's a 3-course meal gum. Like, first course is tomato soup, the second is roast beef and baked potato, and the third is blueberry pie and cream. But then, of course, after the blueberry pie, she turns blue and and she blows up into a blueberry. So yeah, but basically, yeah, that's one of the best scenes in the entire film. There's lots of other great scenes though too, like the fizzy lifting drinks, the glass elevator, the people, the adults who want to find the ticket, like the woman who has her husband kidnapped, She says, "I'll give them anything they want. All I want is to have Harold back." But then, of course, the guys call and they want her case of Wonka bars. How long will it give me to think it over? Yeah, so basically she probably chooses the chocolate over her husband, which just shows how powerful stuff like this can be. It's basically, yeah, it's a black comedy about greed. It's basically kind of a black comedy about greed. But it goes to the right kid. And there's lots of fan theories you can look up about Willy Wonka. One of them is that he actually makes his chocolate out of children, which I don't believe. The other one, though, is that Willy Wonka, what happened was Willy Wonka's plan all along. That's the other theory, so definitely look that up if you're interested in that, because I do enjoy looking at Willy Wonka theories. And they're amazing that this movie can have so many good theories. And this film, of course, I did see in the theater it was a Cineplex Family Favorites presentation in, I think, summer 2016. So yeah, very good. Check it out. Number 8, Stuart Little. Now, Stuart Little, fantastic movie. It was I think it was one of my first childhood movies. I think my first one might have been Trumpet of the Swan, but this was my second. Yeah, but this was definitely a fantastic film. Yeah. Well, I forgot to mention, actually, yeah, this film, yeah, it's from 1999. It's directed by Rob Minkoff. It's rated PG in USA and G in Canada. And it is from Columbia Pictures, and it stars Hugh Laurie, Gina Davis, Jonathan Lipnicki, Michael J. Fox, Nathan Lane, Steve Zahn. Yeah, lots of great people. Sorry about that, I just have a little bit of cold. But yeah, basically, you don't know the story. It's about, of course, the Little family, consisting of Frederick, Eleanor, and their son George. They want to adopt a second child. So basically, while George is at school, they go to the orphanage, to the New York City public orphanage. I love how this movie's set in the heart of New York City. But basically, yeah, so they go to the orphanage and they ask, there's this mouse guy who's their guide about what kind of kids they want to pick, but then they decide that Stuart is the one they want to adopt, so, even though he's a mouse, so they adopt Stuart, but George, when they get home, isn't really happy to see him. And, of course, the cat tries to eat him, too. Like, why would you, like, that's one of the big problems of the movie. There's a lot of problems that they don't make sense. M. Night Shyamalan wrote this. So, basically, yeah, and if you want to know all about that, watch the Unusual Suspects review of this film. It's brilliant. Yeah, he did a great analysis. Yeah, so shout out to the Unusual Suspect. But yeah, why would you adopt a mouse as your son when you own a pet cat? Yeah, that's very stupid. But basically, yeah, so George isn't happy to see him, and the cat tries to eat him, but he makes himself at home anyway, and, like, of course, like, he has this giant bed, because, of course, they thought it was going to be a kid size, like, someone, of course, who would be my size, but when I was a little kid, because I'm tall for my age, actually, too, but, anyways, but basically, and then he also gets stuck in the washing machine, and they have to go get his clothes at a toy store now, and the relatives come over, they also are surprised, too. But, of course, because of all this stuff that's happening, because he's so small, and because nobody's really accepting him, he feels there's an empty space inside of him. But then he does discover later on, after a big battle with Snowball, that George likes to build miniature models, and that they have a lot in common, actually, and that he can ride. He's actually able to ride the miniature models and have some fun with George. So they decide to finish the boat they were building for the upcoming boat race in Central Park. So, of course, that's a big sequence. But after the boat race, they all celebrate. But these two mice come over and say they're Stuart's parents. So, of course, the Littles, like any sane people, give them away to the strangers. And basically, but then the Littles, of course, find out that that's false, and that and then, of course, Stuart finds out that the Stouts, basically the two mice. One of them actually is played by Jennifer Tilly, who you may know as Bonnie Swanson from Family Guy. Basically, she decides to basically... Yeah, sorry about that, I just have a bit of a cold. They basically... they basically took him because they made a deal with a cat, of course, because the Snowball, of course, all the alley cats know about Snowball, who's a house cat. They know about the fact that he's in there, so they want to eat Stuart, basically, and have a feast. So it's up to Stuart to stop the cats, and to find his way home himself. It's a great story about finding your place in the world, and I always just love this movie. And whenever I watch it, it just nostalgia is strong because I've watched this movie like probably more than 100 times in my life. It's a great film. I love it. It's one of my all-time favorites. And yeah, so basically, it's got a great soundtrack too, and it's just a very good feature film. And the special effects actually are amazing. It was the first time, like, Stuart was a very photorealistic CGI character, but you actually, you felt he was there. Like, he didn't seem fake at all. Of course, they had to film without him, because, of course, he wasn't real. But basically, he felt like he was. You really felt like he was there, and that he was a friend, basically, and that he really just, he was a believable character creation. And it's just amazing how they did that. Yeah, Sony Imageworks really did that. And John Dykstra, who was known for doing Star Wars, he definitely he made that effect so realistic. And the cats, they trained the cats, was amazing because cats must be horrible to work with. But yeah, speaking of that, as I have a cat, so basically, the cats were cooperative and they did their cues wonderfully. It was just a great film. And I also love how the cats in this movie represented a mafia. It's interesting, basically. Yeah, it's basically like the cat aspect of the film is basically like kind of like The Godfather, I guess you could say. But yeah, but it's for kids, of course, because it has cats. And yeah, it's made for kids. So yeah, but it's a fun movie that I definitely recommend you watch. Number 7. Raiders of the Lost Ark, aka, as it says on the DVD cover, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. But of course, we just all like to call it Raiders of the Lost Ark because that's the title it originally was. So basically, this film is from 1981. It's directed by Steven Spielberg. It's rated PG in USA, 14A in Canada. It's from Paramount Pictures and Lucasfilm Limited, and it stars Harrison Ford, Karen Allen, Paul Freeman, Ronald Lacey, Wolf Kellier, John Rhys Davies, Dan O'Malley, and yeah, it's just a great cast and a great thing. Basically, of course, if you don't know the story, it's about it's about basically this archaeologist named Indiana Jones, after escaping this traps in South America, where he has to get a fertility idol just stolen by his arch rival Renee Belloc. He basically gets this information about this thing called the Lost Ark of the Covenant, which is a box that Moses held the actual stone Ten Commandments tablets in, and of course it's the source of unspeakable power. So he has to basically, but it's lost, so he has to go find it. Of course, the dad of his old girlfriend, who was his old professor, he has the Staff of Ra, but of course he's dead, so he asks his daughter instead, who has it, of course. But of course we find out that the Nazis, who actually are working with who Renee Belloc is actually working with this time, are basically, they want to acquire the Ark too, because they want it just because of it's powerful and it's worth something. And of course, yeah, Hitler wants it, of course, because he just wants to know what's inside. So basically, they go and they try to, of course, after a big bar battle in Nepal with the Nazis and Indian Marion, they go to Cairo, of course, where they meet Sulla, who basically is going to help him get the Lost Ark. Of course, after lots of traps are found, of course, they find the Nazis, of course, are digging, but they're digging in the wrong place, so Indy finds the precise location and gets the Ark, but of course, yeah, of course they find the Ark, but then the Nazis try to get it. So basically, it's a race against. Indy has to keep trying to reacquire the Ark from the Nazis and trying to defeat the Nazis and get the basically get the Ark from them. And yeah, I'm trying not to do too many spoilers, but yeah, but it's just a brilliant film. Yeah, it's the great cast and everything, great direction. The effects, for the most part, it was 1981, so it wasn't the best effects, but like I said, but they were great at the time, and they were actually revolutionary. So, but speaking of that, the effect that shines every effect out is the end. It's or the climax basically, when they open the Ark and the ghosts come out and they melt the three guys' face off. So basically, Colonel Dietrich is one of the guys. His head basically shrivels up, and I know, gross, right? And Tote, he basically, his head melts, like basically like his face basically melts right down to his skull, and it's really bloody and gory. And then Rene Belloc, he actually his head explodes. Like literally explodes with blood and everything. It's a gross thing, but it was really what kind of that scene, of course, mainly Belloc's exploding head actually, was what originally got the film an R rating in the U.S. When they first actually submitted it to the MPA, but in order to secure a PG rating for the release, they had to put a column of fire over Belloc's exploding head. So, and that worked, and that made it actually look even better. It made it actually creepier. So, yeah, but it was just a fantastic film that definitely needs to be basically watched. Yeah, there's lots of great action sequences too, and the set pieces are amazing as well, like the travel by map sequences and everything. And they actually pretty much shot at these places. And it just looks so beautiful. Like, basically, Cairo. I've never been to a lot of these places, like Cairo or Nepal or South America, or even most places in the States. Like, I only ever went to the I've never been out of North America, and I've only ever been to the United States once, which is when I went to Florida in 2014 for an 8 or 9 day trip, Disney, Universal, and stuff. But, yeah, it's what it is, and I recommend you watch it because you're gonna love it, no matter what. If you haven't seen it, you don't know what you're missing, so, yeah. Number 6, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This film, of course, was released in 2004. It's directed by Alfonso Cuarón. It's rated PG in USA, PG in Canada. It's from Warner Brothers Pictures, and it stars, of course, Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Emma Watson, let's see, Robbie Coltrane, Michael Gambon, Richard Griffiths, Gary Oldman, Alan Rickman, Fiona Shaw, Maggie Smith, Timothy Spall, David Thewlis, Emma Thompson, and Julie Walters, and one who's not listed, Pam Ferris. Yeah, she was a good character in the movie. Basically, yeah, so this film basically is, of course, after Aunt Marge floats up into the sky, basically Harry accidentally blows up his aunt like a balloon after she insults his parents. He basically flees on the night bus to the Leaky Cauldron, where, of course, he finds out before he goes to Hogwarts that there's this killer on the loose, or supposed killer, called Sirius Black, who supposedly betrayed Harry's parents to Voldemort, even though he was their friend. So we find that out later in the film. So basically, so of course the Dementors, of course, are on the train searching for Sirius Black, and there's a big Dementor sequence and everything. And then there's also like the flight of the Hippogriff and everything. But then, of course, they find out Sirius Black has come closer, and he wants his revenge. He wants to kill Harry Potter, so that's what they see. But then it turns out all the Sirius Black info is false, and that they're going to take him into custody and probably kill him, as well as they, of course, already killed Hagrid's, quote, bloody chicken, as Draco Malfoy calls it. Buckbeak because he assaulted Draco. And basically, yeah, so yeah, he's already been killed. But basically what they do is they say, oh, maybe more than one life can be spared tonight. So basically their objective is they have to save Buckbeak and Sirius Black and let them escape. So it's a fantastic film with fantastic set pieces. I love how the Harry Potter franchise went in a different direction at this point, because the first two are more like old-fashioned looking. This one was just so gothic, if you know what I mean. Like, it's very gothic and just really had that darker feel to it, and it felt more Celtic too, if you know what I mean. And it just really was... It was just a great movie. And, of course, one of my favorite set pieces in the film is probably the scene at the beginning where Marge comes to visit the Dursleys, and she basically insults Harry's parents, and he, of course, like any sane person, gets angry, and his magical powers, he accidentally blows her up like a balloon, and she flies away into the sky. And yeah, that's just a great scene with great special effects, and it was all done practically, actually, her inflation. So, and also there's other great scenes like the Hippogriff, which is so majestic, and it's like all the flying over the water, and the music score in this one I like the best, actually. John Williams shines. It was the last Potter film he did, actually. And Honeydukes, and the werewolf scene, actually, where Professor Lupin turns into a werewolf, it's amazing as well. Yeah. This, I think, is the best Potter film, but unfortunately, they didn't get Alfonso Cuarón to do more, because this was actually the lowest grossing of the franchise, unfortunately, so he didn't actually make this movie, but they didn't actually make the next movie, but yeah. Because he was on board, this was the best Harry Potter film, and this is it's the most unique of the Potter films, I think, and it feels different, and I just love that, actually. So, yeah, definitely give this a watch. Number 5, Oliver. This film was from 1968. It's directed by Carol Reed. It was rated G in USA, PG in Canada. And it's from Columbia Pictures and Romulus Films. And stars Ron Moody, Shani Wallace, Oliver Reed, Harry Seacombe, Mark Lester, and Jack Wilde. And yeah, it's just a fantastic film. Of course, it's based on the stage musical from 1960 called Oliver, which is the same name basically. And it's also based on which in turn is based on the 1838 novel Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. But of course, they made a musical, and it works really well. It's one of the best things that worked really well when they turned it into a musical. And the songs are fantastic. I have the soundtrack actually both on vinyl and CD. I listen to the vinyl one more nowadays, but yeah, because my CD one's kind of scratched. But anyways, it's just a fantastic film. Of course, if you don't know actually what the story is, I forgot to mention, is basically during mealtime at the workhouse, which is in Manchester, where, of course, which is where in UK, obviously. The kids are made to work really hard, but are not fed a lot. They're not fed very much, and what they do get fed is gross. Like it's gruel, which is basically just like rotten porridge. So they basically feed them that. But of course, Oliver, but basically a bunch of the boys at one table decide to draw the straws, and who draws the longest straw is dared to go up and ask for more. So Oliver gets dared to go up and ask for more, because of course they're all so hungry. But of course he's denied food. But then they decide to beat him up. The adults, who are of course mean, decide to beat him up. Then of course they take him to the governor's to see what it is, and they want him out of there. So they sell him to this workhouse. Remember the Sourberries. But of course the teenage boy working there is not very good. He makes fun of Oliver's parents, and of course he beats him up and everything. So then he gets locked in the cellar, but he escapes and makes his way to London, where he meets the Artful Dodger, who says basically, I can teach you the ways And there's this guy, of course, I know who would be able to give you a nice place to rest, and his name's Fagin. Turns out he runs a ring of young boys who he gets to be, who he makes them into pickpockets, and they basically steal things, and that's what he is. He's basically a criminal. And, of course, he's also allies with Bill Sykes, who's he's a thief, but he also later find out he's a vicious murderer and a bully. And Nancy, who's his girlfriend. She's in a toxic relationship, though. But, of course, Oliver is there to steal something, and he, of course, gets caught by the police and is sent to court. But, of course, yeah, so it's really the other two guys that... It's the Dodger and another boy that steals it. I think it's Charlie, but yeah. He had Oliver had nothing to do with it, so basically Mr. Brownlow takes him to his home and gives him the nicest home ever, but of course, because he's so small and he's useful, the Fagin, Bill Sykes, and all this, they want him, so they actually try to capture him. Now, of course, it's up to Oliver to get back home safely, and yeah, it's basically just an all-out war, basically, or not an all-out war, but like an all-out action sequences and everything, and it's a great movie. Of course, it's presented in 2 acts, basically, because 1968, when it came out, this was in the older days of musicals, and basically, when musicals were long, of course, they would have, like, the first movie would be, like, an hour and a half, and then the second half would be just, like, an hour. Basically, but that's kind of what this was like. Basically, this DVD edition, it's from 1998, actually, so the first side is on side 1, and the first part is on side 1, and the second part is on side 2. So you gotta flip it over, but, yeah, that's what it was. But the different set pieces in the film, like, just the fact that London looks so beautiful, especially when they're trying to reflect 19th century London, it looks so beautiful, too. And you can really have this, it really has the spirit of what crime and thugs were like in the 1830s, or whatever this is from, the 1800s, basically, 19th century. And it really is just a film that I think stood the test of time. It's one that's, I think, fairly underrated. Not a lot of people talk about this movie, so it's definitely one I recommend quite a bit if you haven't seen it. I think occasionally it does come on Turner Classic Movies if you have that channel. I do, of course, so I watched a couple times on there, actually. Yeah, it occasionally comes on there, so if it ever comes on there, you should probably tape it and watch it. It's a great movie. Or if it's not, if you don't have the channel or you just can't wait, just rent the DVD or rent it digitally or buy digitally or whatever you want. So it's a great film and definitely deserves a spot on this list. Number 4, Spider-Man. This was the very first superhero movie I ever saw, of course. This film was from 2002. It's directed by Sam Raimi. It's rated PG-13 in USA, PG in Canada, and it's from Columbia Pictures, and it stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, Willem Dafoe, James Franco, Rosemary Harris, and Cliff Robertson. And of course, everyone knows who Spider-Man is. He's a famous Marvel Comics character. This film was actually in development hell for like 20 years almost. It went through a couple studios. I think originally Canon Films had it in development, and then it went to 21st Century Film Corporation, who was co-developing it with Carolco Pictures, who is known for another film you'll see later on the list. And basically, then they basically, I think MGM got the rights, but of course Sony wanted them. Sony got the rights to that. MGM disputed the legality, so they had the rights. But Columbia was developing an alternate 007 series, so they basically sold them the rights for, in turn, MGM getting the rights to that alternate series, which was never made. So, and basically, the film was born, and mostly the James Cameron, most of the stuff in the script he used was based on the James Cameron material. Yeah, James Cameron was going to make a Spider-Man movie in the 90s, but legal issues happened, so they never did. That's part of that. The thing was making this movie, so. But it's a great It's a great film and definitely deserves a spot on the list. So, if you don't know the story, of course, everyone knows. It's basically the Spider-Man origin story plus his first like big foe. So basically, of course, a nerdy teenager named Peter Parker, who of course everyone makes fun of and laughs at, and nobody really likes. He's on a high school field trip to the Midtown, or no, yeah, to I think a science museum. Basically, it's Midtown High is his school. He goes to a science museum and he, of course, sees spiders, but of course he decides he wants to take a picture for the school paper of a student, so he gets his crush, Mary Jane Watson, to pose for one, and a couple actually. So yeah, she does. As he's taking the picture, he gets bitten by this radioactive spider, who basically fell out of one of the things. It was a genetically designed super spider, and it's radioactive. So it bites him, but then overnight, of course, he gets spider powers. But of course, he keeps acquiring his powers, and he basically, but after his Uncle Ben he decides to go to get some money for a car to impress MJ as a wrestler when he has his powers, and of course, but then he's betrayed by the guy who promised him $3,000 and only gave him $100. So he lets a criminal go, but that criminal kills Uncle Ben. So his Uncle Ben, who, of course, now he wants vengeance. So he decides to become Spider-Man. And so the day now, of course, there's a criminal on the loose named the Green Goblin, who basically around the time Peter got his powers, he got his power basically because there was a science experiment that made him what he is and turned him basically into a rageful goblin, and basically is out to kill Spider-Man. So he sets up different massacres. And, of course, Spider-Man has to get him because he almost kills his Aunt May, so... Yeah, and he basically hates Spider-Man, so he wants to kill whatever he loves, so... Yeah, Green Goblin actually is the dad of his best friend, who, of course, works at a company called Oscorp. And he, of course, runs it, actually. It's his company, so yeah. But he gets betrayed, and yeah, it's just a fantastic origin story, and it's like the best superhero origin story ever put on film, or one of them. I shouldn't say that, because you'll see the list, but yeah, the best, like, Marvel origin story, you'll see. Definitely a great film that you should watch, and if you haven't, you don't know what you're missing, because this was like the pinnacle of superhero movies. This was like one of the very first very popular Marvel films, because Blade and X-Men were also very popular, but this was one of the very first, this was like the most popular at the time, when they were starting to make the movies based on Marvel characters from different studios. This one is the one I think one of the ones that stood the test of time. Number 3, Spider-Man II. Basically, this film is from 2004. It's directed by Sam Raimi. It's rated PG-13 in USA, PG in Canada. It's from Columbia Pictures. It stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, James Franco, Alfred Molina, Rosemary Harris, Donna Murphy. I forgot to say J.K. Simmons was in that one too. The other one, yeah, J.K. Simmons is in this one, and yeah, as well as yeah, so great cast. And this film, of course, is a sequel to that film, and they basically took a lot of things. They improved in this one. Like, basically, that film was so good, Spider-Man #1. This one was even better, and basically, of course, Peter Parker's trying to balance his life between being himself and Spider-Man. But of course, because of that, he gets fired from his pizza job, and he's living in a crappy apartment where he has this European landlord who has to pay rent to. This movie's very memeable too. It has some of the best memes and YouTube poop memes and everything. So it's another reason why it's so good, because there's two things that conquer all in the internet community: nostalgia and dank memes. And dank memes is what this one conquers, and nostalgia, actually, both for this film. And basically, so basically, it's kind of a crappy life. But, and he has no money and everything, so he's just having a really tough life. And the girl he loves, of course, he's Spider-Man, so he can't love Mary Jane Watson, because the only way he can guarantee her safety is to not see her. But, of course, even though he's still trying to impress her, because he loves her, he's urged. So, but he, of course, he has to write this paper on this guy called Dr. Otto Octavius, who is best friend Harry, who has taken over the Oscorp company, is doing a project with. So he decides to basically do the project, and he actually meets them in person and talks to him. But then Dr. Otto Octavius does a fusion experiment on himself, but of course it goes very wrong, and he has the four mechanical arms welded onto his body, and he kills a lot of people, including his wife, unfortunately. So he decides to go out and kill people and he decides to start massacres. Like, he tries to capture Aunt May and everything, and basically wreaks havoc on the city. Now, of course, Harry Osborn basically has lots of tritium, so which is what he needs for the experiment. There's only 25 pounds of it on the whole planet, so he says, kill Spider-Man and I'll give you all the tritium you need. No, on second thought, bring it to me, alive. So basically, but Doc Ock is trying to do the fusion experiment, so he has to stop, basically, Spider-Man has to stop Doc Ock from doing that and engulfing the whole of New York City into his fusion experiment. Lots of movies about fusion, but this one is the best movie about fusion, so, yeah, basically they just took what was great about the first Spider-Man film and improved it. There's a lot more heart in it, even though the first one had lots of heart. This one is even more, and the story was improved, and it had funnier moments, I think. Like, basically a lot of the moments there's a lot of moments in this film that are popular in the dank meme community. It's one of those great films that's always in the film community, like Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith, which wasn't the great, or Shrek. Like, a lot of those films are in the dank meme community, so definitely one to consider watching, because you'll enjoy it. This is the second superhero movie I ever saw, actually, too, because I watched Spider-Man 1 and 2. I didn't watch Spider-Man 3 till later, because it wasn't as good, but yeah. You'll see. Yeah, this Spider-Man 2 is a fantastic movie. Also, sorry if it sounds like I'm not thinking straight, because I kind of have a cold, so sorry about that. Number 2. Terminator 2: Judgment Day. This film's from 1991. It's directed by James Cameron. It's rated R in USA, 18A in Canada. It's from TriStar Pictures and Crawco Pictures. And it stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Robert Patrick, Edward Furlong, and I think a few other actors. But yeah, basically it's takes the course of the first one 10 years after the first one left off. Of course, John Connor is a teenager, but he's living with foster parents because his mom, Sarah, is in a mental institution for believing all this Terminator crap, they think. So, of course, she, of course, has this, I guess she really heard about that. She has these visions and nightmares and everything about nuclear war, and she tried to blow up a computer factory so she could stop it, but basically, yeah, they think she's insane, so, and they get pleasure out of treating her horribly. I know it's intense, but yeah, basically, yeah, it's a very intense movie, but basically, yeah, so John Connor, of course, there's two Terminators come back. One is a liquid metal Terminator, and one is a just a standard Terminator, so played by Arnold as well. So basically, we don't know which one is the good guy and which one's the bad guy, but we find out later that the Terminator who was the bad in the first one, he's the good guy this time, and is here to protect John Connor because he reprogrammed him. John in the future reprogrammed him, but the liquid metal one's here to kill John Connor so they can not have Judgment Day. And I don't know why they just didn't go back to 1984 again and try to kill Sarah again, but it's weird. But anyways, but yeah, and they basically, of course, they have to get him out. Their objective is to basically get John, try to get him out of the city, of course, so he can be protected. They had to protect John basically from the T-1000, as well as get Sarah Connor out of the mental institution, and also they want to stop Judgment Day, so yeah. Of course, she decides, Sarah Connor, of course, yeah. Sarah Connor wants to kill Miles Dyson, because he's the man responsible for it, but he actually tries to help them stop it, so yeah. Great action set pieces, lots of explosions and shooting, but that's kind of the kind of movie that people like a lot of times, and it's brilliant. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, I forgot to mention before, I did see Raiders of the Lost Ark in IMAX when it came out when it was put in IMAX theaters in 2012, so I saw that, yeah. Yeah, I forgot to mention that, so sorry about that. And, this one I saw in theaters twice. I saw both the 3D both were the 3D version. Once was summer 2017, and once was, winter, like earlier this year, 2018, so. But yeah, basically this one, the film definitely has lots of great action set pieces. It's kind of violent too, and also it's kind of scary at times and intense, because it really shows what nuclear war is really like, and the fact that last year the United States almost went into nuclear war. That was kind of scary, so I had to take a break from watching it at that point because of real life scaring issues. But yeah, basically, so it was, it's unfortunate that, yeah, hope that never happens again, but yeah, so, I'm in Canada, which is right above the States, so I could have gotten nuked too, so, but basically, basically the fact that it's nuclear war is just so scary, but that's kind of what makes it scary, is that, do we want the future to be like this? So it really shows the dangers technology can have, and yeah, it's just a film that really shows if we keep doing technology and rely on it too much, this is what might happen to us, so we should start acting on that. But yeah, it's a fantastic film that definitely has lots of great special effects too. Like the CGI in this film looks better than the CGI we have today, actually. Because they had to be clever in 1991 for that. And yeah, it's just, yeah, watch this movie. It's a fantastic film you should definitely watch, and it'll be worth your time. Now, I recommend, of course, watching the special edition version, which is like 20 minutes longer, but it's 20 minutes longer, but it's definitely worth it. It's a film that's a lot of times it's hard for me to get really a lot through long movies, like, in one sitting, even though I do. These are my favorites, of course, so they're the ones I can. But this one is like 2.5 hours in that version, and it's just a film that feels like it's going to go by. It feels like it went by longer because of how good this movie actually is. It's a fantastic film, so go watch this movie while you can. Not while you can, but go watch this movie right now. It's fantastic. Drum roll, please. Sorry, I don't have the drums with me, so yeah. But my number one just tap my knee. My number one favorite film of all time is The Room. Actually, no, I'm just kidding. KickAss. Yeah, The Room is good, but anyways, yeah. KickAss is my all-time favorite movie. Yeah, so it's, of course, the movie's from 2010. It's directed by Matthew Vaughn. It's rated R in USA, 18 in Canada. It's from Lionsgate and Marv Films, and stars Aaron Taylor Johnson, Nicolas Cage, Chloe Grace Moretz, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Mark Strong, and yeah. Basically, yeah, this film is basically like, the film is kind of like a superhero, it's basically superheroes versus the mafia. Yeah, basically, yeah, so this guy, of course, the story, Dave Lazuski, who is a big comic book fanatic, he wants to try to become a superhero, so he tries. Of course, the first time he gets his ass kicked, because, yeah, that's why he calls himself, he calls KickAss because it's a great name. The second time he tries it, it's more successful, and he becomes famous. He gets on the news because he tries to rescue Kitty, but then there's these guys that beat up this other guy, and he beats up those other guys to, and saves him, and he goes viral on the internet and on TV, and there's a comic book about him coming out, and everything. But of course, he has girl troubles too, because of course, the first time the medic actually, they said they found him naked. And of course, they thought that the guys did it with him, and they thought he was gay. So basically, Katie Doma, the girl he liked, he basically she basically thought he was a good friend, of course, but because she didn't like him sexually because she thought he was gay, obviously. So, but yeah, basically this guy basically Frank D'Amico, who basically I should mention that there's these two other guys. This guy named Damon McCready and his daughter Mindy. They are training. Damon's a superhero, but he's training Mindy to be a superhero too. Damon's Big Daddy, and she's Hit Girl, and basically they team up with KickAss. But of course, Frank D'Amico thinks that these superheroes are going to take away are going to stop his business, basically selling drugs and being with the mafia. So he gets his son, who's the same age as KickAss pretty much, to dress up as a superhero and basically lure them in. But of course, the only problem is he kind of becomes friends with them, so they have to take matters into their own hands. And there's big battles and everything. It's very bloody and very profane. It's very violent, actually, and I think there's about 86 uses of the F word in this film. And yeah, I remember actually I dressed up as KickAss for Halloween 2016, as well as I think a superhero villain day earlier that year at my junior high school. When I was still in junior high at the time. I'm in my last year of high school now. But basically, yeah, it was just a great movie. And sorry, I just got to stretch my legs. It was kind of sitting like that for a long time, just kind of. Anyways, but there's lots of great lines in it, action sequences, and basically it's just the badassity of the character and the franchise. Just the fact it's basically like a mix of like feels like there's teenagers from today, there's gothic teenagers, and also like it's like lots of regular teenagers, gothic teenagers, and mafia and superhero like movie feel all in one. And it's just, if you're any of those kind of people or fans of that kind of thing, you'll love this movie. So, and there's of course it's not for kids, of course. It's because the name is Kick-Ass. So yeah, it's a bad word, but it's just a film that I think is my favorite film of all time. As soon as I watched it, I loved it, and I share a love of this film with my mom as well. A lot of these films my mom likes too, but she really, really likes this one. This is our favorite film together, definitely. It's probably my favorite film of all time because of that. And yeah, if you have not seen Kick-Ass, go check it out. Unless you're, of course, a fan of Heart. But yeah, I watched it when I was 14, so you're probably fine. And it's just a fantastic film that is definitely, it's definitely a film that you definitely want to see.